Outsourcing social media consultants, I think, is one of the biggest mistakes businesses can make. The people that they teach to do what they do well are the ones that are successful, not the ones that they outsource to. Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. And if this is your very first time, welcome. I'm so happy you chose to spend this time with me, and I know you won't be disappointed because today you're in for a very special treat. I get the honor and privilege of interviewing incredible people from all over the globe, people who have amazing experience in what they do that can share that knowledge and wisdom with our beautiful listeners. That's you. And today is something a little bit extra special because while I get to interview guests from all over the world, I also have the honor and privilege of working with some unbelievable human beings right here at Auxano. And I asked myself, what could be an episode we could do that would provide amazing value to you? And I realized we have got somebody within our own team here who has unbelievable knowledge and wisdom, who is an incredible human being and believes in this industry as much as I do. The amazing Teagan Edrich. Now, Teagan has been working with us for a number of years now, and we have seen her grow not only her skill set in leaps and bounds, but her passion for what she does and why she does it. In this episode, I got the chance to convince her to come along onto this podcast and share some of that unbelievable wisdom she's gained over the years. Now, to even it up a little bit, she also got to ask me some questions. So we came to this interview with 5 questions each that we wanted to ask the other person. And we went ahead and did that. It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot. And of course, lots of wisdom and knowledge was shared. So, with all of that being said, I hope you enjoy this episode. Remember that with any episode that you watch or listen to with me, I want to challenge you to do one very important thing. You don't need more knowledge, all right? You don't need more information. There's enough of that out there. What I want you to do when you come and do any learning with us here is I want you to implement something. So can I challenge you to do something today? When you listen to this episode, I really want you to take something away that you are going to commit to implement off the back of this. It could be something we say, but it could also just be something we inspired you to think of, maybe a new idea or concept. But I want you to go away and implement something because that is what's going to make all the difference in your world, and that's what I care about. I also want to ask you to do a little favor for me. This podcast is something we provide as a service to support people, to impact people, and to help this industry. But we can't do that alone. So can I ask you to do me a little favor? Can you share this podcast with someone else that you love in the industry or someone that you think needs to hear this message today? And can you hit that subscribe button? The more of those we get, the easier it's going to be for us to not only keep this podcast and this training completely free, but also to keep delivering you incredible content on a regular basis. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand over now to the interview. Hope you enjoy, and thank you again for tuning in. Well, welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I am so excited for this interview, Teagan. This is going to be a lot of fun because I don't often get to interview a guest as special as you.
Oh, I don't think you've interviewed a guest as nervous as me, perhaps.
Oh, I have. I know I have. But I do. I know that you're nervous, but I am really excited for this. So for those that don't know, the beautiful Teagan is one of our incredible team members. And Teagan, I still remember the interview that you did with Greg and I remember interviewing you for one role, and over time you have literally morphed in to the most incredible, I'm going to say, business manager, because you're a bit of everything, right? You help us run challenges, you create content, you even do a bit of training now, which I bet you never thought you would be doing, and you handle so much of the technical back-end stuff that I don't even want to know about. You are literally you are amazing. And I know a lot of people who are our members know a little bit about you, but probably today are going to learn a lot more about you and what you do and your incredible expertise. So I don't even know what to call you now.
I don't know either, but it was interesting you saying about that interview. I remember the first time I came across you was actually one of your presentations. I was lucky enough to see you speak in person. And then I attended an online event, and from there I just stalked you a little bit. I was following you,
Glad you
and
didn't say that in the interview. Yeah.
no, that probably doesn't get you a job. Hey, I stalk you.
Yeah.
Um,
People say it, by the way. We are currently interviewing for another role, and I have literally had that conversation in the last week.
I'll have friends.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing that job pop up, and I'm like, hang on a minute. I know that person. I know that company. And it was just so nice to have that passion and that interest behind me and then see that morph into a job. And I remember the interview, and we sat there, and it was during COVID, and it was behind face masks. And it made it so
Oh,
much
that's
more
right.
scary because I couldn't
Yes.
see your facial expressions. There was a level of body language removed.
Yeah, that's really true. And really thought about that. Interviews
Yeah,
during
so
COVID must have been really rough.
well, it was actually really exciting because I got to meet you on stage. I got to meet you online. I got to meet you in that room. And then I got to meet you all over again when we actually could see each other and get behind that mask.
I remember that day. I remember the thing for me that stood out, and I just said to Greg, it doesn't actually matter what she can do. I just love her personality so much. You are so bubbly. You are literally so much fun. And anyone who knows you knows that you are so much fun. You're quirky in all the right ways, and you've just got this incredible bubbly and vivacious and out there personality that shines through, by the way, all of the work that you do, including the emails you create and the social media content that you do. And I know initially we hired you to do, work alongside of me to do some social media content, but that morphed very quickly. And so today, I said to you, I want to pick your brain because you have gained so much knowledge over the years, and you just learn like a sponge. And the stuff that you're now doing, you work very closely with Greg doing a lot of the background technical stuff. You learned social media. You already knew a lot about social media, but you learned a lot from me, and then you just took it and ran with it. And when you need to learn something, if you don't know it, you go out there and you find the information, and you're brilliant at it. So I thought today might be a lot of fun for you and I to actually ask on this podcast some questions of each other that both we want to know, but we also know that the community might also want to know as well. So it's kind of like a pick your brain episode.
Okay. I think I have the brain there. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so we have picked 5 questions each that we're going to ask each other. Because some of them are a bit technical, we have sent those questions to one another just so that we've got a little bit of a heads up, which I'm really glad about, because when you sent me your questions, I was like, wow, I really have to think about some of these. So can I start? Because
Okay.
I feel like I run this podcast. I'm allowed to start, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I want to ask you the first question, which is actually the reason I want to start is because it's in alignment with what we were just talking about.
Mhm.
And it's a 3-part question. And that is, I want to know, first of all, what you most love about your job, how it's different to other roles that you've had in the past, and what is something that you've learned from our very unique community, because obviously direct selling is a whole new world, that's changed the way that you approach work? So start with the first question. What do you love most about your job?
The people. I've worked with small and large business owners before, as well as in business development, and of course, our own business too. But the people, our community, the people I've met through this role are what I love most about it, but also what makes it so different from any other job, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, we have unique individuals there from all different backgrounds. They have different experiences and different businesses. They're all in the direct selling industry, but that doesn't mean their businesses, they can be completely different in what they do, what they sell, a service or a product, the types of products. One day we might be selling recipes and all this delicious food, and the next day we're talking about weight loss and eating less. It's great, the healthy balance, but, it's just so interesting. You've got different ages, different languages sometimes, different technical abilities, and of course, different strengths.
Yep.
So, that's sort of also what I've learned from our community in a way. It's how to work with a wider range of people to explain things, write things, answer questions, and have those conversations, but remove any barriers, like any assumed knowledge. Know how to explain things in different ways for different personality styles, different love languages, different learning styles. Actually speak into each individual person while speaking to many people as a whole.
Yeah, it's quite a unique skill set to learn, isn't it, right?
It's incredible. And the number of people we work with and the number of businesses, it's just always changing. So it's so great to see, I guess, at the heart of that passion. And that's something that I'm so driven by. And I know you are too. It's passion. And to start a business, you have to be passionate. And that's what's at the heart of each of these individuals.
Yeah. I love that you kind of answered all three questions in one. So that was a perfect answer, Teagan. Well done.
Thank you. Does that mean it's my turn?
It's your turn. Yep. It's your turn.
So what has been the biggest challenge for you in building the business you have today?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this in three parts, because as I got thinking about this, my mind kind of rolled, and I was like, okay, well, there's actually several parts to this that are critical, and the big things that I've learned in order to be in the business that we are today. And I say that because without any of these three things that I learned, we literally wouldn't be here. The first one was and I can recall several incidents that happened very early in the piece, before Greg was in the business, before you were in the business, when I was literally on my own, and it was me and my business coach, and it was learning to get back up after setbacks and failures. And, sometimes they were things that I did. Sometimes they were things that happened outside of me that I couldn't control, like clients moving on, or things getting cancelled, or people not paying bills. And, back when I was doing consulting, and consulting clients can be very fickle. They, when you're doing month by month, 1 month you can be doing really well, and the next month you've got no business at all. And there was this period of time where I constantly felt like I'd get up to here and then I'd bounce back down and crash back to the ground, and I get back here and crash back to the ground. And I felt like there was a lot of brushing myself and getting off and getting back up again. And I know for certain, if I didn't have an amazing business coach and mentor and people around me that I had shared my vision with, I would not be here today, because there are so many times that I would have given up, because it just felt like I'm not qualified for this. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I might as well just go back to employment. And I swear I probably would have several times, had I not had a whispering person in my ear going, no, you had a vision, you've got a mission, I believe in you, you've got this, let's just take the next step. Brush yourself off, get back up, let's do another day. And so I'm so grateful for those people in my life. And so the next thing in that I learned, and actually it was from that same mentor, was particularly around the time I started speaking. So you saw me when I was speaking, doing workshops. So I had a 3-part phase to my business. Part 1, and I actually knew about these phases before I started. And Greg will often talk about the ridiculousness of this and how he absolutely didn't support it because it seemed crazy. But my plan was, my big vision was, I wanted to run trainings online to help people grow their businesses. I wanted to take people from confusion and overwhelm to teaching them what I knew. But in order to get there, I knew that there was a process. And process number 1 was, I need to get my hands and my feet dirty, and I need to go in there and work with businesses hands-on and consult to them, so I know absolutely what are the problems people are facing and how to solve those problems. That was consulting. Step 2 was, I'm going to run workshops in person where the content I'm planning to teach online, I'm testing on a live audience in a controlled environment, and I'm going to monitor and test all of that content. That's where I met you, or where you saw me the first time, was in one of those workshop environments. And then after that was to go online. Well, one of the things I didn't anticipate with all of this was I'm going to be speaking in front of groups of people, and those groups might start at 10 or 20 and they're going to grow. And then eventually I'm going to be speaking to thousands of people online. It didn't occur to me I might also be speaking to thousands of people in person in an arena setting. That was definitely not in the vision or on the agenda, but it's what's happened. But here's the thing I learned. I had to let go of feeling like everyone needs to like me, because when you're training like that, it's very easy to listen to the negative Nancy, or the person who's not your dream customer, or the complainer, or the squeaky wheel, whatever you want to call them, in the back of the room, or, online in a forum or on a webinar or a training, but they don't represent the whole. And there was one particular day I was about to get on stage at a conference for a direct selling company. It was probably one of the first in-person proper conferences I ever did. And I knew my stuff back to front, but I was hyperventilating backstage. And I rang my coach and I just went, what on earth, how do you do this? I don't know how to get out there. And she said, what's stressing you out the most? And I said, I'm worried that they won't like me. She said, right, you need to get rid of that, because you actually don't get to control that. You don't get to decide if people like you or not. Your job is to get out there and have an impact on one person in that room. I said, but there are hundreds of people in the room. I said, I want them all to be happy. And she said, you don't get to make that decision. It's none of your business what they think of you, and you cannot control that. What you can control is having an impact on one person in that room, and knowing that if you have that impact and you walk away, you've done your job. And they were some very, very wise words. I've shared those with lots of people since, and I know they've changed lives for lots of other people too. But I have to remind myself of that on a daily basis, because as we as a team get exposed to more and more and more people, there are going to be people that don't like what we do. There are going to be people who are not pleased. There are going to be people who we're just not a fit for. And there are going to be squeaky wheels out there. And we could spend all of our time pandering to those, or we could really focus on working with those people that we are here to serve. And that was another lesson. The other one, I'm just going to give you very quickly because I know it's a very long answer, is letting go. I had to learn to let go. And when Greg came into the business, and anyone right now who's listening who has worked with their partner understands what I'm about to say, which is when you work with your partner, you have to find your own lane. And that was darn hard. And you might remember, because it was when you came in, we were still fairly fresh on that journey, and it took us a little while to find our lanes. And part of finding them was me learning to let go and not controlling everything in the business anymore, and knowing what to delegate and doing that. So that was a big journey for me. But once I learned to do that, I feel like things kind of started to really flow much better, and here we are now. So very long answer to your question.
Isn't it interesting? I think, particularly being a woman, but anyone within business, that's the thing. You try to be everything and talk to everyone. But then when you actually step back and look at it, you realize, hey, as much as I like most people, there are some people that I have less like for. And you know what? Some people, I might be that person. And that has to be okay. As long as you're comfortable and confident in what you do, I guess you have to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's a really hard one. I think most people probably fall into. It's why I thought it was really important that I mention that one in my answers today, because although it may seem obvious, I still think it's probably one of the greatest problems that people face in business, is that you want to please everyone, because it's a reflection on you. But the thing that you've also got to remember about that is it's not about being liked personally. It's not a personal reflection on you. If someone doesn't like your product, or they're not your ideal customer, you got to remember it's not about you. You've got an offering, and that offering is going to be valuable for a particular group of people. And the moment that you get really clear on who that group of people is, your life will actually become so much more enjoyable, because as you and I often talk about, and this comes up a lot in our weekly meetings, is if you spend all your time trying to please the squeaky wheel, you don't actually get the blessing of working with the people that are your dream customer, that want to work with you, that you can, they've got so much grace and patience for you. And you can stuff up and they'll still love you. And they're the ones that I think we should be pouring our time into. And the thing is that if you try to please everyone, guess who gets ignored? The very people who are your perfect people, the people who you love to work with, that bring you joy, that you bring joy to, whose lives you change, and probably who will also change your life as well. But the squeaky wheels you'll never please, and they'll just make you miserable, to be honest.
Yep.
We might have some squeaky wheels listening to this right now going, I wonder if she's talking about me. If you're asking yourself that question, it's quite possible I am. Not everyone is for you. And guess what? We're not for everyone. Hard lesson to learn, but when you learn it, it's like a huge weight off your shoulders. Okay, I've got my next question for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. You do something I don't love, which is that you work very closely with tech and automation. And I often hear about the really cool things that you guys are doing in the background to make our business operate better, to systemize things. But I've got to ask you, you know, when it comes to tech and automation, and this is quite a generalized question, so feel free to break it down a little, but do you think that it enhances or limits creativity?
It's hard. I have that IT knowledge and understanding, and that is a space I work in. You know, I can be reading code 1 minute and picking pretty colors on a graphic the next.
Which is crazy, by the way. I don't think many people would be able to jump like that.
It's lots of fun, but I'm also really guilty of, I can understand something in IT, but I'll also explain it as the little switchy thingy or the little bubble up in that corner because I can never quite find the words. And I think that comes back to what I spoke about before of at the end of the day and at the center of everything is people. It's understanding how a person interprets either the creative side of it or the technological side of it. And for me, that's the circle thingy. Really, you know, expert language and knowledge. But I think that sort of makes me think both. I think it limits it, but I also think it helps it. You have tools like Canva, like AI tools like ChatGPT. There are AI elements in most online platforms now, Facebook Messenger, for example. And I think that improves things. I think it creates opportunity. It doesn't limit to your imagination. You've got this other almost endless imagination right at your fingertips as well. But I also think we have to be so careful to know that there are humans behind what we're doing. You know, people can see when AI has written something, it's becoming more and more obvious the more it's used.
Yeah.
There are people behind the screen. So as much as you can use these amazing tools to make things more creative, more efficient, to get these ideas, at the end of the day, you've still got that person there that was there in the first place before these tools. So I think it is limiting things in a way of, you've got to remember who you're talking to. Just as you said, know your people, because you can do all these amazing things, but it doesn't mean you should do all of them.
Yes, that's really wise. I love that. So use it to enhance you, not to replace you.
Exactly. I think you might have said that before.
I might have.
Okay, talking about the things you say. I know you're big on driving words, keywords, and what language means to you. So I have a 3-part question for you. I want you to give me one word for each of these things.
Okay.
So the first thing is, what drives or motivates you the most?
What drives or motivates me the most? Challenge.
Challenge.
I love to be challenged. And it's got to be in the right way, but I really love I love something to be a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Okay. So in one word, what's the most important value to you right now?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. I know what your third part to this is going to be, so I'm going to hold off one of the words that actually relates to this too, and I'm going to give you a different word, and I'm going to reformat this word because the word that means the most to me right now is a word that I'm using a lot in our trainings because I think it's what people are striving for, and I'm trying to change the mentality around this word, which is balance. So I'm going to change the word to harmony. I had to really think about this because the thing that's really important to me right now, and my first gut reaction when you wrote this out was family. I'm going through a phase in my life right now where, I did prioritize my career over my family in my 20s. I had my first two boys when I was in my very early 20s, and I was freshly married, and, long story short, I missed out on a lot of time with them. They were both in childcare at 3 months old. I didn't get to spend quality time with them, and it didn't even occur to me that I should. I just felt like I'm either a career woman or I'm a mum, but I can't be both. Now, in my later years and the things that I've learned from some very incredible people, and you being one of those people, by the way, you inspire me every day with the way that you mum and you work and you balance all of that. I realize that I get to make choices now to balance. We talk a lot about the wheel of life inside of the Rise Up Inner Circle, and I really believe in the importance of the harmony between those 10 areas. So it's not about balance, because balance is impossible and you're never going to achieve it because there's no such thing. And if you strive for it, you're just setting yourself up to fail every day, because today, my focus may be on one particular area, but at least I'm aware of the impact it might have on other areas of my life if I prioritize this today. And so harmony for me is what I'm looking for right now. And that is, how do I harmonize and understand the relationship between the 10 different areas of my life, from my business to my relationship with Greg, to my relationship with family, to my learning, my contribution and giving back. How do all of those things interact? My health and fitness, my spirituality, all of those things matter. But it's about the harmony between those things, and how do I be conscious and deliberate about how I give those things my attention, rather than sticking my head in the sand and ignoring, say, my health, because I just don't have time for it and everything else has to take precedence right now, which is what I did for many years, and it always comes back to bite you. So I'm going to say harmony in the sense that it's about a moving balancing act all of the time.
I like that. There was definitely a quote in there that I'm going to have to go back and grab out later on for more social media content.
Okay. What was the quote? Do we remember?
About balance, and that balance actually isn't a concept. I really like looking at it from that approach. So
it's
final word. What's one word about how you want to leave people feeling when they interact with you?
Yeah, this is my word of the year, and I'm guessing that you brought this up because every year I pick a word, and I've had abundance. Last year was presence. I've had courage, but this year it is connection. And I want people, when they come in contact with us, to feel connected. I believe that, particularly with where AI has gone, people are feeling more disconnected than ever. They don't feel like they belong. They feel left behind. They feel uneasy. They don't know what's real. I want, when people do anything with us, whether it's a training, whether it's just watching a video, listening to this podcast, I want them to feel connected. I also want to be connected with my family and friends and team and everyone else. So it's a word of the year for me. I always pick a word at the beginning of the year. Did you pick a word at the beginning of the year this year?
No, I'm going to have to think about that. That's my homework after this.
Yes, I'm going to ask you about that next week. All right, next question. You do a lot of work with our challenges. Usually when we run a challenge for any company or even our own members, you and I will sit down and we will strategize what content are we going to use, why are we going to use it, how are we going to do it so that it works for this particular group. What I want to know is, of all of the content strategies that we do, if you had to design a challenge that had only one piece of content, one content strategy of all the content strategies that we play with, what would it be and why?
Reach outs. And I know that's technically not a content strategy, so I'm kind of breaking the rules again. It's just, presence is so, so important. But again, people are at the core of it. I like integrated approaches. We've done work with our community on challenges outside of social media posts. We've done momentum challenges. We've integrated, personal growth, business growth, productivity. We've looked at all that before, and I love that integration. But at the heart of it all, it's people. And that's what those reach outs are about. It's about knowing that you're posting for a purpose. And that purpose is, as you said, connection.
Yep.
And how do you take that connection to that next level? It's reach outs. And it's a bit ironic because it's often that optional bonus we give within challenges. We say, hey, let's get you posting consistently. Let's work on your content together. But if you'd like, you can talk to people. Now, I
Yeah.
think it's optional because I think it should naturally occur. You know, once you're getting that interaction and people are talking on your posts, it's going to open up those conversations. But I think they're one of the most essential parts of not only our challenges, but also your business.
Yeah. Do you know, I did not think you were going to say that. I'm really surprised that that is what you came back with, but I'm also really pleased that's what you came back with because I know when we get our testimonials, it's usually around the reach outs that people are they're saying, oh, I did a reach out and this happened. I did a reach out and I got a sale. I did a reach out and I got a team member. I did a reach out and I reconnected with somebody that I haven't spoken to for many years and it's just blessed my life. And, you know, it's actually, I wonder if it should be an option in the challenges moving forward because it is so powerful, right? But it is compulsory inside of the Rise Up Inner Circle. It's a part of what we do every week. And interestingly, because of that, it's actually they're some of our most successful members because they're doing those connections every day.
And it's like you always say, just because they're not interacting doesn't mean they're not watching. So, you know, if they're not actively interacting with you, how do you then give yourself that confidence, that encouragement, that momentum to move forward? Well, if you're then interacting with them, if you're taking that first step, then you're giving yourself the opportunity to open up that conversation of, oh yeah, I saw you mention that, or I was watching your video last week, and you get those situations happening. But you create the opportunity for those.
Yeah.
You know, if I never ever asked my husband out on a date, then we never would have been married. We wouldn't be together today. It's about taking that first step. It's about saying, hey, are you interested? Can we catch up?
Yeah.
Because I could walk in and out of where we met. I could make myself look pretty. I could talk to our mutual friends. I can be there. I can be present. I can be there 5 to 7 times a week like I would be on social media. It doesn't mean that he's going to know that I'm interested until I actually reach out and say, hey, how you going?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Do you know why, though, those reach outs are such a big part of the training that we do? Did I ever tell you that it was literally a big mistake I made?
No.
When I was growing my business, I remember ringing, like I had a period of time where I didn't have a lot of work going on. And so I spent all my time networking and reaching out to people. And then I got so busy in the business that I stopped doing that and I just did the work. And I remember it was like I woke up one day and all of a sudden I had no work. And I rang my coach and I went, I don't know what's happened, but I was so busy and now I'm not. And I didn't change anything. She said, yes, you did. What activity did you stop? And she said, I already know the answer to this, but I want you to think about it. And I went, well, I guess I haven't done any networking and reaching out over the last couple of months, but I've been so busy. And she said, if you stop doing that, you stop filling your pipeline. It's one of the biggest mistakes you can ever make. You've got to prioritize time in your week, every single week, no matter how busy you are, to keep filling that pipeline, knowing that when you're reaching out to people, a lot of those people will not come through or come out the other end of that funnel or that pipeline for a long time. Some will, but many of them you could be working on and connecting with and building relationship with for years. And I was like, I already know this. How could I have got myself in this position? And so, you know, filling your pipeline is not a tomorrow fix. It is a constant thing you need to be doing because slowly over time, those results will trickle out. And so I was like, I could see a lot of the people that we were working with were doing their social media posting, but they weren't, as you say, directly connecting with humans. And so what was happening was they were going, oh, nothing's working. I'm like, how many humans have you actually spoken to? Like, you're posting, but how many people have you spoken to? And they're like, oh, well, no one's rung me. But you need to proactively reach out. And what you've got to remember is reaching out doesn't mean selling. It means relationship building. And never in a sales role have I ever led with a sale. I've always. And as a top performing salesperson, by the way, in all of my past sales roles I had, some of those were really challenging cold calling sales roles. Like, I had to sell some tough stuff, but I always started with relationship building and that reaching out and connecting. was the only way that was ever going to happen. And so I was like, I need to make sure that doesn't happen for these people again. So I'm going to make it a part of every training I do, because I know if there's one activity they can do that's going to get them results, that's it.
Absolutely. And I think we're both from sales backgrounds, and the training that you get in every sales role or any role, be it your own business, to encourage growth, is that funnel. And as a salesperson, when you first see that funnel, it's this dreaded tool often drawn up on a whiteboard. It's in tech systems now, but when I started in sales, it was just this whiteboard and everyone had their colors and you could see what was at what stage. And you go, okay, I get the idea. We put business in and we get business out. But they never talk about the how behind that. And it's usually tackling those difficult tasks and making those connections, which are the two things at the heart of the Rise Up membership, as you said.
Yeah.
And they're a lot of what we do in our challenges as well. It's tackling the hard tasks, using those strategies that you might not have thought of or been comfortable to use before, adapting them to you and your business, of course, and also, reaching out and making those connections with those people.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, it's your turn.
Okay, if you were going to make a social media time capsule, you were just going to bury it in the backyard for Addie to find 50 years from now.
Yeah.
What 5 platforms or items, it could be trends, would you put in there that you think will go down in history as memorable moments, good or bad?
This was really hard to come up with 5 because I think I've got 7 on my list here. Okay, so I've got some that are both good and bad. And the first one I have to put in there because it's nostalgic and I talk about it a lot because I believe it's why Facebook is the way it is MySpace.
Yes, that was on my list.
Yeah. I just remember the page you all had and you could put music to it and all these background colors and people go to your page, and I don't even know if it still exists. Does it still exist?
I don't know. I'm going to have to look after this.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put MySpace on my list. I'm also going to add AI because I really, for good and bad, but it's obviously it has been world changing and it will continue to be world changing for a long time. And possibly by the time Addie digs this up out of the backyard, AI is a very normal part of everybody's life.
Yeah.
But I think the time we're in right now will go down in history because it's a big transition. And by the way, I think I think a lot of people are still very afraid of AI, but you've got to keep in mind you're already using it and surrounded by it every day. It's not that you need to like it. I often say to people with Facebook, I don't care if you like it or not. It's still a valuable and powerful tool to grow a business, and you could ignore what's right in front of you, or you could say, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to find ways to use this that work for me to help enhance me. It doesn't mean that you need to put all your time into it, but just be aware other people are using it. You're already using it, whether you know it or not. So maybe just take a couple of steps and embrace it a tiny bit if you're feeling awkward about it. Just, everything is uncomfortable the first time that you use it or play with it. So there's that. I also, because I think this is a pivotal time for me, and this was right at the time that I sort of stepped into the business that I'm in now, I'm going to say live streaming. So, when Facebook Live came out, that was such a big deal. But live streaming has become such an important and valuable part of content now. And I think this is one of the good things because it created a reality where there was less editing, there was less fake, there was less is this real or isn't it? Live content is live. It's real, it's relatable, it's happening in the moment. And so it's prioritized not just by platforms, but I think also by people. So I'm going to throw live streaming in there. I'm gonna put one in there that is a pet peeve of mine. And unless used in a very obvious way to be funny, which we have done, I don't like it being used, and that is filters. And for me, it goes in alignment with, and I'm going to throw one of the other ones in here to tie this in with it, which is the generative AI, which is, that whole concept of what's real and people feeling like I don't know what to trust and believe anymore. By the way, if you're a woman, and I just want to speak to the women here right now, you are an influencer of others and you are having an impact on people whether you know it or not. If you show up on a video or a live and you feel a need to put a filter over your face, you're saying I'm not good enough, and you're also telling other people that they're not good enough. Please stop doing it. You need to show up as you are, and you are beautiful as you are. I can tell when someone has used a filter, and all it says to me is you're trying to show this perfect version of yourself to the world, and you're not actually showing me who you are, and you're telling me that I can't show up as I am either by default. So I've got a big pet peeve for filters, and I think that they will eventually, except for the funny ones, which, you know, like I've got ones of squirrels on my head and all sorts of weird things, because you'll sometimes say I need, you know, an animals in the forest picture to get people's attention. But unless you're doing it for super fun like that, putting a filter that you are making look real to try and enhance you, please just be you. You are amazing. Be you, okay? That's going in my time capsule because I want Addie to know it's okay to be herself. The last one I'm going to pull out of there, because I think this is going to die a big death soon. And it's a big call. It's a prediction here, but it's official influencer marketing. So when I go to Facebook and I'm scrolling through content and I see an influencer promoting a product that they're getting all these clicks on, and they're getting all of these comments on, and then they're sharing their influencer link, and then tomorrow they show up with another product from another company with another influencer link, and then the next day they show up with another product from another company, it leaves me wondering, are you genuinely sharing what you care about, or are you just sharing what you're going to make money on today? And are you using me? And I think that is becoming the general feeling of a lot of people out there right now, is what can I really truly believe? And so it almost feels like a misuse of trust when influencers build an audience genuinely by being themselves and then begin to insert product after product after product after product. When you show up with one product and one brand that you truly believe in, and I get to know you and I get to know that you truly believe in this product, that for me is much more believable. It is much more genuine. It is much more honest than today I'm going to show you a skincare product from this brand, and then tomorrow I'm going to jump in and show you a skincare product from another brand, and then the next day I'm going to talk about this incredible brand that's in competition with the one that I showed you 4 days ago, but I'm just going to pretend that none of us saw that. And so for me, that influencer marketing strategy, which brands, by the way, are jumping on at the moment because it looks really attractive, I actually think it's doing damage to a lot of brands, to be perfectly honest. And I think those influencers eventually, and surely already, people are starting to really see through that. So they're the things I'm putting in my time capsule. I'll be very interested to see what they will look like in 10 years down the track.
I'm just glad MySpace had a your top 5 friends feature. I remember the battle, and that sort of feeds into that filter thing too, of trying to get into the top 5. You know, I thought you were my best friend, but I don't know, I'm not in your top 5 on MySpace. And I'm so glad that can just be put away, because I think it's that level of false impression that social media can give.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of brings up as well that like button on Facebook, which has been such a contentious issue. And over time, they've been phasing that out, very much so, because they realized that there was a correlation between that like button and a lot of mental health issues as well. And so, yeah, there's a lot to be answered for, I think, when it comes to social media and mental health, the safety of people, but also connection. And you know, I think it's probably been a common theme of this chat today, is like it's so much about connection and using social media to establish real connection rather than replacing it. But I think we've got a long way to go.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately. Okay, is it my turn?
It is.
Okay. I want to know what a content idea or project is that you're most proud of and why.
I thought about this one a lot and I really wanted to pick something specific, but I couldn't. I think it's any of our challenges, be it with our own people, be it with another company.
Mm.
My personal favorite is challenges that also have people with English as a second language. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, I love that. I love
I do remember.
understanding how language can influence perception, I guess.
Yeah, I do remember there was one where we got asked to do, was it French? And you were like, oh, I'm all in. I want to learn French. And your amazing husband speaks a bit of French.
Yeah.
And you were like, you went home and you translated all the posts to French. I was like, I can't believe that you're taking the time to do this. But yeah, wow. Okay. That's
Yeah, I don't
interesting
know.
because that stresses me out. When we have to do a second language, and we often do these days, but
Mhm.
I'm worried because I don't know what it says. So I don't know if we translated it properly.
Mhm.
Obviously, we've got professionals doing it, but I can't check it. It's that feeling of needing to let go.
I think the reason the challenges are my favorite is because they are so varied. Be it, when we work with a company, we may have 10 ideas, but these 10 ideas then have to branch into 30, 40, 50 different things because it has to reflect that company, their products, their needs, their values, and their people.
Mm,
Um, so I like how you can take something like an engagement post and then you go, hang on a minute, with engagement posts, there's 50 different types of engagement posts, 100. We have resources like that. But then you stop and you go, for each of these 100 questions we've just come up with under one engagement post, you can ask them 3 different ways
yeah.
for this specific company. And when we work with our own community or we do challenges across, even our free community, our free challenges, it's working with multiple companies as well. So it's really fun. We often ask people to share what they post. We look at it and we see how everyone's doing, but it's fun picking up common themes and also new ideas, seeing how people take one idea and their perception of that
Yep.
and use it for their own content, them and their values and their people. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's where those secondary languages, or those third or fourth, we've done 4 or 5 languages and challenges before at one time. I like that. It can be very risky, as you said, trying to get it right and trying to phrase things in the right way. French has feminine and masculine ways of saying things. And, how do I talk about a phone when I don't know in what way I should refer to it? I don't have that understanding that I would like, but I love that opportunity to learn.
Yeah, see, that's what I love about you is you go, oh, I can learn something new. That's what I said about the start. You are like a sponge and you suck it up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not an expert at this. I'm stressed out that I'm going to get it wrong, which of course goes against everything I tell all of you guys, our listeners, to do. You don't get it perfect. Doesn't mean that it doesn't occur to me as well that I want to get things perfect. I often call myself a bun in the oven, right? I'm teaching you what I know is important because I'm also either had to learn it or I'm currently learning it. And being a perfectionist is definitely a challenge for me. So I love that you love that because that stresses me out.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah.
Your love language is gifting. So this is a fun one. What is the strangest gift you've ever received? And I'm hoping it's not one of my Christmas presents.
No, I actually wanted to ask you how you work out your presents because you are officially the best gift giver
Oh,
ever. You come up with the most creative, fun gifts. I love it so much. I always know I'm going to get something super fun when Teagan, it's Teagan's turn to do gifting. This was a really hard one because I actually want to flick this around. I couldn't think of anything that was strange in the sense that it was weird because for me, my love language is gifts. So part of it is I'm just excited that you thought of me enough to gift me something. If you gift me something, even if I don't like the gift, I still feel loved. And that's, you can make me feel more loved by giving me something that's you've considered me with. So like a gift, gifts for me, it's gifts and acts of service. So it's kind of like if you take the time to think about what I might like, and then you do your best in that space, that's a really special thing because that says to me that person really cares. Hence why it's my love language. But I want to tell you about a gift that this happens often with Greg actually, and it hasn't happened just once. It's happened multiple times where he's given me a gift that I didn't know I wanted. So when I first got it, and he and I laugh about this a lot, I actually had to apologize to him a couple of years ago because I was really mean. He gave me a gift where I'd be like, why on earth did you give that to me? I didn't want that. I wouldn't want that. That's more about you than it is about me. There are two that I can think of, but I know that there's been many. And Greg has had to learn gift giving with me because for him, he rates 0 on gifts when it comes to love languages. But one of them, he actually learned to make, he made with his dad a handmade pair of water skis that were these big, fat, wide skis that didn't appear to be something I would ever want. I was like, why on earth did you spend all this time making me these skis? And they were a replica of some skis that he had when he did the world record. Some of you might remember that story, but he was involved in the world record for the most water skiers behind a boat. This was actually well before my time with him. And so I wasn't even there. I was like, why would you make me replicas of these skis? And he said, because I know how much you value skiing with other people. And these are really big floaty skis that will allow you to ski with a friend and talk and, have a conversation because it's less about skill and more about socializing, right? Yeah. Well, over time, and I got these skis, they have become everybody's favorite skis. And so whenever we want to go out skiing with someone, everyone wants to use the white skis, which were the skis that Greg gave me. So I was like, I didn't even know I wanted these, but these are actually a really special gift. Another one is we're in the office, in our last office, and where we had a shared reception area. So any delivery that came would come to that reception. And Greg and I often give each other a really hard time over our deliveries because, he online shops, I online shop, and it's like, who's been buying stuff today, right? Well, this particular day, this massive big Job speaker, like a boombox speaker, rocks up at the front desk. And I mean boombox, like on your shoulder, massive boom. It was called a boombox, or JBL boombox, I think it was called. Giant thing. And it rocks up, and it's a couple of days before my birthday. And I remember one of my really closest friends works in that building, and she saw it rock up. She was like, oh my gosh, what has she got? What has he got you for your birthday? And I was like, Greg, the technical guy, the guy who loves sound, the guy who loves music, he's bought himself a boombox. Well, when I opened it, and I was like, you kidding? You bought that for me? Like, why do I want that? And I think I was mean enough to actually say that at the time. And I've since had to apologize because it has, again, become a staple in our home. It goes with us everywhere that we go camping. It goes with us, outside, inside. It is constantly in use by me, Greg, kids, everyone. And it's amazing. And so they're things that I received that I didn't know I wanted. And I've learned when Greg gives me a gift, I need to just be open to the possibility because he's thought very carefully about the gift, and it could mean anything.
I remember Rachel, who was on our team as well, and she was on episode, I think, 200 of this podcast. So some people may know Rach. Her and I were sitting in our office one day in person, and it was just before you were due to have Addie. So you were at home, and Greg came in and he said, I want to get something special for Sam. Here are my ideas. And he listed off, and it was 3 or 4 things, and I can't remember what they were now. But I know one of them, Rachel and I were like, oh, no, heck no. And I can't remember what that item is, but it's interesting listening to you explain it like that because regardless of what he got you, whether it was that item that Rachel and I went, no, you can't give that to your wife. It's the fact that he stopped and he took the time to think of 4 different ideas and then to research each of those ideas and pick the one thing for that idea and then take them to 2 of your friends and go, hey, what do you think about this? Yeah. And it was the level of thought behind that. I think, it does show the power of gift giving.
Yeah, I think it is something to keep in mind. When I was always a little bit embarrassed to tell people that was my love language because it felt a little bit, what's the word? It just felt a little bit materialistic maybe. Mm-hmm. But it's not about the gift. It's about the thought behind the gift. And I've received a lot of gifts over the years that don't make me feel loved because I know that person just went to the shop, grabbed the first thing, and handed it to me and went, that'll do. But when someone stops and says to themselves, I love Sam or Teagan or Greg enough to think about the person that they are and what I know about them and try to find something that they would be pleased by, whether you get it right or wrong doesn't actually matter. It's the thought that goes into that I really think makes someone whose love language is gifts feel loved. And that's what it's about. It's the thought. And that's where people say, oh, it's the thought that counts. Yes, but it does have to follow through. Like you can't just think about it and say, well, I thought about it. And the thought is the thought that counts, right? So, yeah. But I asked Greg this question. I actually said, what's the weirdest gift I've ever got? And he actually brought those two things up. But the other thing he reminded me of was the year that, because I also love cards. And when I say cards, I mean like the card with the gift shows the thought. And I used to get really annoyed when I would give Greg a present with a card and he would just skip the card because who cares? I was like, no, I put thought into the card. The message on the front and what I wrote inside. And but there was one particular year, and I think it was a fairly important birthday. It might have been my 30th. I can't quite remember, but every card I got, I don't know how, it wasn't that people communicated with each other. It just happened by default. But every card I got, people had forgotten to buy a card. So what they did was they repurposed a Christmas card because my birthday is in February. So every card was Happy Christmas and they crossed out the Christmas and written birthday. And I remember the day it happened because I was sitting in my office and I kept getting, people were handing me cards or, they arrived in the mail. I was like, did everyone communicate? I came out with about 10 cards that were Christmas cards repurposed as birthday cards that year. So that did pop into my mind as a funny one.
I see cards as intimidating. I'm such a talkative person. So often when I answer our community, I say, I'm really sorry for the novel, but, and you can tell when I've answered questions because they're way longer than they need to be. So I see cards as this little space. I'm like, there's so much I want to say about this person, so many amazing things I need to tell them. And I've got this little square to do it in.
Yeah, but then that's when you do a gift like what I gave you for Christmas where you write
incredible.
you write out a message for every week and you can get them all out. It's
I like that.
If you're wordy. Okay, so next question for you. What is a system or a tech tool that you couldn't live without? And what's a system or a tech tool that you secretly wish never existed?
Never existed. I don't know if it counts, but dial-up internet, that phone, it's still just the high-pitched ring. I can still hear that in my head.
Yes.
If I never heard that, I would be very, very happy.
That's so funny. Okay. What is a system what is a tech tool or system you couldn't live without now?
Canva. It is so much fun. So it's now a multinational company, but it was founded, I think, in Perth, Western Australia.
Yes, Australia. And I love that. It was founded by an Australian.
Its HQ is in Sydney.
Did you know, little hot tip here, I found out recently that one of the people who started Canva actually now lives in Tasmania, in Launceston.
I'm going to be a stalker again. We already have spoken about my issues.
They were a silent partner. It happens that I know the owners of Canva. So it was a silent partner and they located in Launceston. So there you go.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm not crafty. So I used to knit. I wouldn't have a hope anymore. If a button breaks off our clothing, I always get my husband to fix it. I am awful. I can't draw. I can't paint. I'm okay with clay. So now that we play with Play-Doh, our youngest is 3.5, so we do get Play-Doh now. I get so excited that I can make these creations that he then destroys. But Canva is sort of my craft. I will actually use Canva on my phone for something to do. I'm not specifically making anything. There's no mission. There's no reason. It's sort of my colouring in, my craft time.
I love that.
It's user-friendly. It's easy. You just can click and drag. It's accessible, but there's so much possibility. So, colouring in or crocheting to a pattern, it limits me. Whereas something like Canva, I can just do everything and anything. And they have their foundation and their charity programs behind it. They support food security, homelessness. They do a lot of good things that a lot of people don't know about. And again, it's such a big company, but it's an Aussie company. So it's not only what you can do with it, and you see so many small businesses using it now and the possibility and opportunity it has created. but it's also what's behind it, its values and what it stands for and the people who created it.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. It is definitely an amazing, amazing tool for sure.
Definitely. Okay, my turn. When it comes to not just direct selling, but small business generally, what is one change? If you could wave that magic wand, we talk about that a lot, one change you would like to see generally in the way people behave or operate or the way things are done? Not necessarily a bad thing you'd like to change, but what's that opportunity, that thing that we could create and improve?
I have worked with, obviously in the last, I would say 6 years, I suppose, we've been working exclusively with direct sellers. But prior to that, I was working with lots of small business owners. And before that, hundreds and hundreds of businesses in the marketing roles that I had before I ran this business. And it goes hand in hand, but the thing that really frustrates me that I see as a missed opportunity is the amount of people that lead with their product and their service rather than themselves. And I want to be really clear about this, especially if you're a small business. People care about the story, they care about you, they care about the person behind the product, the person behind the business, the person behind the service. And when you lead with it's all about the product, it's all about the what I do, people are not loyal to products. They're not loyal to businesses. They're loyal to people, and they also want to feel connected, and they also want to know that they're part of a story. So, one thing that I would love to see small business owners do is lead with who you are, what you're passionate about, and then what's in it for the people that you're serving. So it doesn't mean that you only talk about you, but it means that you need to show up. And, I want to know who is the electrician behind the scenes. I want to know who is the plumber behind the scenes, who is the builder behind the scenes, who is the real estate agent behind the scenes. Look at real estate agents as a really great example here. Your people go to the agent, not necessarily the company, usually not the company. It's the agent that builds the relationships because they know that their customers will follow them anywhere because it's not about the product. It's about them. It's about the service that they provide. The flip side of that is this, and I don't see it so much in direct selling, but I definitely see it a lot in other small businesses. And it is your social media is too important to delegate. And the amount of companies, the reason I started teaching is the amount of companies or businesses that would hire me or any other social media consultant to come in and run their social media for them like they could hand it off. I saw it fail every time. I never, ever, ever saw it as being successful. And the reason is because somebody else cannot replicate your passion, your story, the behind the scenes of what you do. Only you can do that. And so you can hire someone to run it for you, but if you're not feeding them quality content every day, and you might as well be doing it yourself if you were, then it's just not going to work. So outsourcing social media consultants, I think, is one of the biggest mistakes businesses can make. And I'm sorry, I got a lot of friends who are social media consultants, but if they were being honest, would probably say the people that they teach to do what they do well are the ones that are successful, not the ones that they outsource to. So that's why we moved into education, because we could see that it was the only way we were going to get people the results that we wanted them to have, because they needed to show up. So really the answer to that is show up. You show up. Don't make it all about the product. Don't lead with the product. Don't lead with the service. Don't lead with the business. Lead with you, because when people care about you, they'll care about the product and the service and the business that you have.
It's interesting you use real estate as that example. Over 10 years ago now, I sold houses for a number of years. I did your cliche real estate advertisements, put myself in the paper, on billboards, letterbox dropped, these are my results. These are the amazing things I've done. And, it went all right. I was successful. I was happy. But my most powerful campaign was just a flyer that said, I would love to catch up for a cup of tea. And I bought a heap of tea bags and I stapled it to that flyer. And it was slow, but when I started getting the calls in, I would come into these houses and I would assume it's because I sold their neighbor's house or because I knew so-and-so from the next neighborhood. But they would pull out these flyers with these tea bags on them, and they would still have them because it was quirky, but because it was real. It spoke into something that mattered to them. You know, great, you get great results, and everyone wants the most money they can get for their house. But that's not what's relevant to them. They don't care really what someone's house sold for a month ago, a suburb over. They want to know what you can do for their house, but more so for them. And if that first step is sitting down and having a cup of tea, actually listening to them, actually seeing their home and why they think it's amazing, that made a big difference. And it was my most successful campaign I did. It got me the most business because I simply said, would you like to catch up for a cup of tea, and stapled a heap of tea bags to some pieces of paper. It wasn't even professional printing. It wasn't glossy. It was just some A4 paper, black and white print, and a tea bag.
Yeah, it's so true. You know, Greg and I have been speaking to real estate agents recently. We've sort of dabbling with, do we renovate? Do we buy something else? What do we do? And so in that process, we wanted to get our home valued. And we know a lot of real estate agents. And Greg and I toed and froed a lot between who would we get to value our home. We got several people to value our home, but the really interesting thing was there was a difference between, I think we had 4 agents come and value the home. One, we already knew through, real estate. I think we when we were looking at homes, when we bought the home he was one of the agents that we dealt with at that time. And so we spoke to him. But the interesting thing is that unless we go and look at an open home, we never see this person. When we do, we get along really well with him, but we don't see him in between. We knew could get a really good fee for our home. And so his sell point was, I'll just get you the best price, which is great. But the thing is, will he listen to us? Will he give us advice? Will he support us? Will he be easy to deal with? The person we actually decided that we would go through if we sold was somebody who took the time to ring us and ask us how we were and give us some thoughts and advice and share their contacts with us when we said, do you know anyone that can help us clean the carpets or do this or do that?
Yeah.
And then this person would actually check in personally. They would ask personal questions in an appropriate way, but this person built a relationship, and we knew that if we sell our home, this person's going to listen to us. They're going to care. And I think it's the same with everything. It's where the loyalty lies. It's very, very hard for someone to move to somebody else, even if the product's better, if they have a loyal relationship with you that you've built with them over time, because their connection is not with the product, it's with the person. It doesn't mean that you don't have an amazing product. You also always have to make sure that you're doing a really good job of your job, because people will leave if you don't. But it's not the most important thing. That's, you can be the best person in the world and the best friend, but have a terrible product and terrible service, and people will leave. But if you have the best product in the world, the best service, and you don't have a relationship, it's not going to make any difference at all. So,
and coming into this role, I didn't know a lot about direct selling. I'd been to, parties here and there, and I'd had friends that had worked in the industry, but I never really understood how it worked, what was behind it, and what it was about. So I had a little bit of reservation and a little bit of hesitation. Did I understand it well enough to be able to relate, to connect, to be able to do the job?
Yeah.
And it's changed a lot over the years, and I think the world of this industry, of course. But I actually found more how I connected with the industry before I truly understood it was actually seeing that the difference is that person, because I can go to the shop and I can buy this specific item, but it ends there. The person at the checkout, they don't know my name. Maybe I read their name tag. It probably wasn't even their tag they were wearing. If I don't know how to use the item, if I have an issue with the item, if I want to buy another one and I go back and they don't have it anymore, it's in a different color that I hate, there's no communication, there's no relationship, there's no real meaning or value behind that item or that service.
Yeah.
Whereas direct selling, that's the first thing I noticed about the people that we work with. You're connecting with that person and they're so passionate about what they do that it makes the value they offer 10 times greater.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I actually have, and I know we've gone so over time here, but I want to ask you one last little bonus question before we finish up.
Yeah.
And you've sort of alluded to it before, but I actually specifically want to ask you about your strategy here, because I know a lot of our listeners think, how do I be creative when I don't feel creative? And you jump from logical, technical, coding and systems and all of that sort of stuff very quickly into creativity and having to make things look good and create beautiful posts and write creatively. And you are so good at that. But I want to just know, When do you feel the most in flow and creative, and how do you create those moments in work? Do you do it deliberately, or are you just like a really lucky person that can just switch?
It is a little bit deliberate. Ironically, it's when I can focus on one thing at a time. And I'm not talking about one task, I'm talking about one thing. So men and women, but women are notorious for it, often multitask. Mums, even more so. We're always doing 10 things at once, and what we're not doing, we're thinking about because we're scared we're going to forget it for later.
Yeah.
So I'm both. I'm a mum and I'm a female, so I'm really guilty of jumping about and doing multiple tasks. I'm a chronic multitasker. But while it's important in my role to be diverse, I'm really driven by passion. And I guess connection and passion is something we've talked about a lot today. So if I can identify my passion, be it a certain project, a certain member, a certain business, a certain idea, then I look at my task and my flow. Mm-hmm. So I will often shut away a day, and I've got a day shut away this week for a particular project we're working on, where I either take the whole day or a certain part of that day and I focus on that one project. For example, if it was a challenge, yes, I might be creating a web page, I might be writing code, I might be doing emails or automations, creating graphics, creative writing. It can be both sides of my brain. It can be the creative and the logical, but that passion, that focus is that company. It's that challenge. It's thinking from their point of view, their products and their people. So I think that's really important for me, that as much as I can multitask and do lots of things at once, I need to have that focus and that passion at the center of it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point and an important thing to finish off on, and definitely something that we do train on and we make people very aware of is if you're going to create good quality content on social media, you need to be focused. And so segmenting that time to say, this is my time to be creative. And if you need to then change your environment or get yourself into that place, you can. But I don't think any of us can just jump backwards and forwards all the time. And I think that's what a lot of people do with social media is go, oh, quick, I've got time to create a post. I'm going to do one now. And then the next day it's, oh, quick, I found another window. I'm going to do another one now. And assuming you're going to be able to be creative and have that flair and be strategic in those times is really asking the impossible. So segment time and prioritize it to be creative and keep it alone. I actually look forward to those times. To be honest, because I don't think I make them if I don't make them.
And I mean, if you're honest with yourself, I'm sure there is a lot going on in your mind. There always is. We're human. That's what humans are great at. We're great at overthinking, about worrying, as we said, will people like us? Are we doing the right thing? There are all these questions, but you also need yourself to allow yourself the space to answer those questions and to do your best to reduce a little bit of that doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Teagan, I have loved so much being able to have finally have you on this podcast instead of working on it.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were in it, not on it. Teagan is usually the one in the background who is making sure that these podcasts get out on time. And for years, she's been putting them all together. I hand her the recording and off she goes with it. But it's been an absolute honor for me to be able to pull you in here. And I'm so glad that you said yes. And I know that our listeners are going to love some of the tips that you gave us today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, thank you to our beautiful listeners for tuning in again. It's so great to have you here. Please make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on anything coming up. And we would love for you to share this podcast with someone else that you think it can impact today. So thank you again for tuning in. And that's it from us. Bye for now, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.